All right, guys, so Trump is doing it again. He spent all of Biden's term bitching about lawfare and political persecution and how he's a victim. And of course, that was bullshit. Of course, all the charges against Trump were because he actually fucking committed crimes. In fact, Democrats were so hesitant to just do their fucking job and uphold the law. They're afraid to actually go after anybody else who's a ruling elite. Merrick Garland dragged his fucking feet, right? Well, what we learned is, as Jack Smith said, I 100% would have gotten a conviction. It was over for Trump. If I was able to do my job and complete my investigation and take him to court, it would have been over, right? This is what Jack Smith said. You also have, of course, Letitia James, who got Trump's ass. She got him on a whole bunch of civil cases. He did tax fraud and insurance fraud and business fraud and all this shit. Never mind the E. Jean Carroll stuff, right? So, like, he was already caught dead to rights. He was seething over that. So what does he promise to do when he gets back in office? Retribution and revenge. He goes on a retribution tour. And so now what he's doing is what he accused Democrats of doing. He's doing political persecution and lawfare. How do we know this? Well, he went after James Comey like a number of times, and every time the shit is fucking falling apart because everybody knows he didn't commit a crime. Okay? So it's failing miserably against James Comey. It's failing miserably against fucking Letitia James. Same shit. It is just, whatever you got, throw it at him, right? Whatever the fuck you got, throw it at him. And really, I think at the end of the day, they're just trying to scare these people. They're just trying to, punish them for their dissent. So even if it's just, you got an indictment, they want them to have to go through that process, get arrested, go through the process of having to go to court. They want that to happen as some form of a punishment. They probably know we can't get them on shit because they got these like fake ass attorneys that don't know their ass from their elbow. And they're the ones that are like doing these cases for Trump. Okay. Well, now we got another one of these. Take a look at this. Federal prosecutors open criminal investigation into the Fed and Jerome Powell. So Trump is now targeting Jerome Powell at the Fed chair. So the Federal Reserve, the central bank, Trump is now going after him. Why? Well, very simply, Trump has been screaming he wants interest rates lowered, and Jerome Powell hasn't done it because Jerome Powell actually understands how this shit works. By the way, he's also a Republican. Let's be clear about that. Lifelong Republican. But he knows the correct thing to do economically, given whatever the current situation is. He knows, hey, if we lower interest rates, you're going to have runaway inflation. We don't want that. But Trump is too fucking stupid to get it. And he's pissed off because he feels like if you just lower interest rates, I'm going to be better off here because that means more free money floating around the system. Trump's a real estate guy. He thinks of low interest rates equals free money, which is good for everybody. That's how he thinks. But he's also a fucking colossal idiot and a moron, right? Jerome Powell knows that's bullshit. He's been trying to put pressure on him to cut the interest rates. He's refusing to do it. And now Trump is criminally investigating him. Why? Because they're like remodeling the Fed building or some shit. And Trump says, oh, it went over budget. So they're actually committing fraud. So now he's going to be hit with, a criminal investigation. Just so disgusting. All right, so ready? Here we have a video from CoffeeZilla on his Voidzilla channel, and he breaks this down for us. Let's take a look.
The man who controls America's money printer, a.k.a. Jerome Powell, is being threatened. In a video, he claims that he might be criminally indicted for not lowering interest rates fast enough.
Good evening. On Friday, the Department of Justice served the Federal Reserve with grand jury subpoenas, threatening a criminal indictment related to my testimony before the Senate Banking Committee last June. That testimony concerned, in part, a multi-year project to renovate historic Federal Reserve office buildings. I have deep respect for the rule of law and for accountability in our democracy. No one, certainly not the chair of the Federal Reserve, is above the law. But this unprecedented action should be seen in the broader context of the administration's threats and ongoing pressure. This new threat is not about my testimony last June. Those are pretexts. The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president. This is about whether the Fed will be able to continue to set interest rates based on evidence and economic conditions, or whether instead monetary policy will be directed by political pressure or intimidation. I have served at the Federal Reserve under 4 administrations, Republicans and Democrats alike. In every case, I have carried out my duties without political fear or favor, focused solely on our mandate of price stability and maximum employment. Public service sometimes requires standing firm in the face of threats. I will continue to do the job the Senate confirmed me to do. Thank you.
Now, this is an extraordinary statement, mostly because of how much the Fed chair never talks about things like this. Like, for him to release the hostage video of him being like, look, the guy's threatening me, I'm going to try to keep doing my job. The reason that's wild is that it's never happened before. And look, while presidents wanting the Fed to lower interest rates is nothing new, almost every president wants that. The idea that a Fed chair gets investigated and has to release the hostage video, that is new. We've never seen that happen ever. In fact, it's important context to know that Jerome Powell was actually appointed by Trump.
Jerome Powell to be the next chairman of the Federal Reserve.
And even then, they weren't on such good terms, but that's where you could see the independence of the Fed at work. And so while he would be criticized at the time, like the attitude was he wasn't really going to respond. That's been the attitude of the Fed sort of all the time. They try to stay above the noise of politics.
Recently, the President of the United States who appointed you has been less than favorable in about some of your decisions. Does that bother you in any way?
No. So we're very, very focused on our job. We don't get distracted by other things. We do not take political factors into consideration either in our discussions or in our decisions at all.
That's right. As long as the Fed has been around. And by the way, there's plenty of reasons to not like the Fed legitimately, but I would argue independence is not one of them. I think that's a actually good quality, and that's what you see kind of referenced there. The idea that the Fed should not be reacting to what a president is saying at the time. And the reason for that, there's a good reason, is because all the presidents would want low interest rates all of the time, even though that's not in the best interest of the economy all of the time.
And by the way, I should point out, Erdogan, the authoritarian leader of Turkey, he also decided to wage war against the Turkish central bank, and he started controlling interest rates. And their inflation rate was 10%. When he wasn't controlling interest rates. After he got control and lowered interest rates, their inflation rate went to over 80%. So if Trump gets his way and puts a lackey in there, and the lackey can convince the other people who vote on the Federal Reserve Board on interest rates, can convince them to lower interest rates when they shouldn't be lowered, we also would have massive, massive inflation in this country, and that would only get worse. So in a sense, Jerome Powell is trying to save Trump from himself. That's what he's doing. As many people throughout the years have tried to save Trump from himself. He's too stupid to get it, doesn't care, and is still crusading against him.
And the reason for that is because low interest rates usually mean a lot of growth. It also can mean heated inflation, which ends up hurting the end customer, right? But nobody wants to take the hit of higher interest rates in the short run because nobody likes it, right? So the Fed, whether you like them or not, has sort of been assigned the adult in the room job of raising interest rates to keep inflation in control. And again, whether you think they've done a good job of that or not is irrelevant. The point is that was their job. They're supposed to be independent. And pretty much all presidents may make some comments about wanting lower rates, but Trump has definitely taken it a little bit farther, mentioning Powell a lot, pressuring him to lower rates, even going so far as to start hinting at the idea of a possible federal investigation. And this all centered around a Federal Reserve renovation, which is running over budget. And there started to be pressure that maybe they would look into Jerome Powell doing something bad if he didn't play ball and lower interest rates. They would try to accuse him of some fraud or some kind of misstatement or something like that. And Trump even actually visited the whole renovation site to kind of make a big PR spectacle of it. And there was this moment where they're arguing over how much the building should have cost because each one is like jockeying for, oh, you're spending too much money. And the other one's being like, no, I didn't. It's this really weird moment if you don't understand what's happening underneath the surface.
It looks like it's about 3.1 billion. It went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed.
Yeah, it just came out.
You're including the Martin renovation. You just added
entire capital.
Yeah, you just added in a third building. Is what that is. That's a third building.
Well, no, but it's a building that's being built.
No, it was built 5 years ago. We finished Martin 5 years ago.
So it's part of the overall work.
It's not new.
So yeah, that was months ago. They were just kind of setting the stage for, hey, we may look into this if you don't play ball. And that's sort of explicitly said later, like a few seconds later in that exact interview. Trump is asked, well, is there anything that would cause you to sort of back off Jerome Powell on all the comments you're making? And he gives away the game.
Are there things the chairman can say to you today that would make you back off some of the earlier criticism?
Well, I'd love him to lower interest rates. But other than that, what can I tell you?
We live in a mobocracy. That's what this is. Like, he's just acting like a mob boss now. That's so crazy. Like, that was the whole point of that meeting, was to threaten him into lowering interest rates.
Be more obvious. They go to investigate your cost overruns when they don't like what you do. And when asked, is there anything that would tone down your criticisms? Well, yeah, if the guy does what I want. Now, I should be clear, President Trump denies having any knowledge of the Justice Department's investigation, although this is kind of undermined by the fact that Trump has recently threatened to sue Powell for incompetence.
Thinking about bringing a suit against Powell for incompetence.
So yeah, there's no way really to look at this as anything but pressuring the Fed to do what we want so we can lower rates, even if they're not seeing the economic data for that. Now, I want to be super clear. You can't just, if you're the Fed chair, it's not like Jerome Powell just sets the rates by himself. There are 12 people who vote on the rates, and that's actually how it gets decided. And that matters because regardless whether this investigation leads to an indictment or it's just threats, Jerome Powell is going to be out as the Fed chair very soon, and Trump is going to replace him with somebody who's more favorable towards his thinking about interest rates. But that person also has to get those votes of the 11 other people, and Jerome Powell could stay on as one of those voting members, if I understand correctly, until 2028. So the implication of Jerome Powell goes much longer than just his current chairmanship. I think there's a pressuring to just remove him altogether because he has been an influential opposing voice to the lower interest rates at all cost conversation. Now, I did want to address some false information I've also seen circulating about Jerome Powell. I saw this guy tweeting about this. He says that Jerome Powell is a flagrant partisan working for the deep state. I mean, these people, I don't know if they just don't understand how the Fed works or they know nothing about Jerome Powell, even himself.
Yeah. CoffeeZilla, let me explain it to you very simply. Nobody on the right knows anything about anything. I mean, that literally, it really is that simple. They lie about everything. They make shit up. And they are the loudest, most arrogant people in the room at the exact same time. It's really disturbing, very disturbing. I don't know what we do about these people. I genuinely don't know.
Jerome Powell is a registered Republican. He was originally appointed by George H.W. Bush to the Treasury, and then Obama appointed him, Trump appoints him, Biden appoints him. He has been a staple of the government, serving both Republicans and Democrats forever. But if you just want to go straight down the line of you want to play the he's a hack thing, the guy's literally donated to Republicans his whole life. And then he stopped making donations when he got elected to the Fed chair so he could do the job of being independent and not just serving one guy's interest or one party's interest, but instead serve everyone. Now, again, you can have disagreements about whether the Fed actually does that job or has messed up that job. But the idea that we are going to be benefited by a Federal Reserve, which is just beholden under duress to what the presidents want at any time, you're just not looking down the curve, I feel, because it's not always going to be a Republican in office. It's going to be a Democrat too. And if the Fed's just a biased guy, it's just always going to be low rates that cause the dollar to further devalue. I mean, I feel like already there's a big public national conversation about the impact of inflation, and you want that problem to be worse?
They're moving like there's never going to be elections again, or that they know they're going to win that election. That's how they're moving, which is very eyebrow raising because it's what do you have up your sleeve where you're actively trying to destroy the dollar and have inflation skyrocket, but you're not worried about losing power? Whatever they're cooking is as disturbing can be. However they're planning on rigging this shit in 2026 or 2028, because this is political party suicide, what they want to do.
I truly do not understand this one. It's going to be interesting to see how people lay out the case against Powell. Personally, I find the whole, we're so concerned about the budget thing to be really weak. I think ultimately the question has to be, would you have cared if interest rates are low? Would you have been super focused on the Federal Reserve building cost overruns? I don't actually think so. When you actually look at what
no shit.
they're thinking of investigating him for, it's some statements he made to Congress where he said there's no VIP dining room, there's no marble, there's no special elevators, just old elevators that have been there. There's no new water features, no beehives. There's no roof terrace gardens. And this person says this statement is false. So actually what we're fighting about is a few water features and elevators and maybe a dining room.
Yeah, and it's ironic coming from the guy. You're going to go after Jerome Powell for going over budget on renovations? Trump just illegally, by the way, redid the Lincoln bathroom. He just illegally knocked down the east wing of the White House. He's openly talking about privately fundraising from billionaires to create the Epstein Memorial Ballroom, which, again, none of this was approved through Congress, which it has to be. So you're going to talk about, building codes and going over budget? Are you kidding me?
That is actually what the national conversation is about. That's why we are totally legitimately investigating this guy who seems to have a face that appropriately sums up the situation. But look, I mean, it's no joke. They got grand jury subpoenas. I mean, that's not easy to get. It's a little more than just opening an investigation. It shows that they're quite serious. So we'll see where it goes. I mean, are we going to enter Banana Republic stage where 0% interest forever? I don't know, but we will find out.
Yeah, he's trying to take us there. In so many other ways, he's gotten us there. He's gotten us to, primitive type country status. That's where we are. And he's going to make it worse. I mean, this is an all-out assault on America. the likes of which we haven't seen in our lifetimes. So buckle up, everybody. It's all coming. All right, y'all. That's the show. I love y'all very much, man. You guys know the drill. Everybody subscribe to the channel and click that bell icon. You can also support the show on Patreon. Remember, we can't do the show without you. This is real independent media. There are so few independent media outlets out there. We are real independent media, not just online media, as many outlets are, right? They say they're independent. They just mean they're online. They still fucking have corporate deals and read ads and shit. We don't do any of that shit, okay? So support the show on Patreon or tip with that thanks button on YouTube. You could also sign up for Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. You get the exclusive interviews, the full video of them as soon as they drop. And go subscribe to Corin's World. We're live there tonight. I love y'all, and I'll see you there. Peace. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.